You want to call on someone else, Joan?
Oh, Reverend Scott Williams?
Oh, yeah. Hey, I'm Pastor Scott, and I'm over at First Christian Church in Pleasant Hill. I'm the lead pastor there.
You want to call on someone, Scott?
Oh, sorry, Jamie, go.
I've done mute. Hey, everybody. Jamie Jeanette with Health, Housing, and Homeless Services for the county. And I will pick Barry.
Good morning, everybody, new friends. I'm Barry Kammer. I am a retired United Church of Christ pastor, and I've spent the last 30 years as my ministry in affordable housing. And now I'm a practicing pastoral counselor. Thanks for
Pick
having
someone, please.
me. Mark.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark McMahon. I'm with St. John Vianney Church in Walnut Creek, and member of this task force, and also racial justice task force with Doug.
Please pick someone.
Oh yeah, sorry. Well, since I mentioned Doug by name, Doug.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Doug Leach. I'm a member of Danville Congregational Church, and I am the chair of the steering committee of Multi-Faith Action Coalition. And I was the one who invited Barry Kammer to join us for this meeting. And I'll turn it over to Clara.
Thanks, Doug. I'm Clara. I'm the program manager at Home Match Contra Costa County. And yeah, that's who I am. I will turn it over to Julie. Have you gone yet?
Good morning. I'm Julie Clemens, the Director of Development at Shelter Inc. And I guess I'll pick on Jo since she just joined.
Uh-oh. And what happens now? What did
Just
you want?
say who you are and who you're with.
Oh,
The usual stuff. No tough questions.
okay.
That's Judy's bag.
Yeah, Jo Kerner, and I'm the co-chair of the Social Justice Alliance of the Interfaith Council.
Okay, Judy, take it away.
Okay, I'm Judy Stillman, and I'm the outgoing executive director of Winter Nights Family Shelter. I'm also a member of Lafayette United Methodist Church and have my finger in a couple other pies.
And I'm Jan Warren from Lafayette Christian Church. I'm the chair of this committee, and Leslie Gleason is on mute because she's doing something else, but she's the executive director at the Trinity Center. So I have a little bit of a story for meditation today. People are pretty familiar with the Flint water problem. And I just started this book for my book group, What the Eyes Don't See. She and her family came from Iraq, and her grandfather was quite a personable guy. There were 5 brothers, and they ended up all doing different things and being very successful. But at one point early on, they all were in a perfume factory business until it burned down. And they were devastated because they lost everything. And so they were just didn't have any resilience at all at the time because they were so overwhelmed by losing everything. And so friends, employees, and all started coming and consoling and offering help and encouraging him to reopen, build it back. And he just didn't see how he could do it. He didn't have any funds. And so they just said, well, don't give up, build a new factory. And they started bringing him Iraqi dinars. And they didn't have much money, and he didn't have much money, but it worked. And he gradually rebuilt the business. And their generosity consoled him, made him feel better, and he was brave again, and he started over, and they all became successful in so many different ways. But it just reminds us of how important it is to be encouraging to other folks and to actually physically lend a hand, not just a prayer. Prayer is good, but to actually do something to help someone. So, Christoph, oh, let's start with minutes because you usually forget those. Somebody want to make a motion, or someone find some corrections that we need to consider? Last month's minutes. All right, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from
I so move.
wonderful Joan? Do I need a second for minutes? Doug said yes. Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Thank you.
Please pass them. All right,
Yeah, right.
all right. We'll send Joan back to the drawing board there. Thank you. Julie is here, and so we're gonna let her start off. I found this, and so I just kind of threw it in about the film, Julie, so I hope that's good.
It is, yes, thank you. So we are having a virtual event later this month in less than 2 weeks now, 10 days, I guess. We're hosting the film by Josh Hayes called The Invisible Class, which is a look at homelessness in America and how we got here, a perspective on how we got here, because I'm sure there's more than one truth to that story. But it's a great film, and we'll be having, so it's free to people who register, and they can watch it on demand, just like all your other on-demand services, for 3 or 4 days. It starts on Sunday, actually, and then Sunday through Wednesday, you'll be able to watch it. And then we're having a panel discussion on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. So for those who sign up, we'll be sending you links to those things, to both of those. And then we'll just have a virtual day of giving on Friday post-event to try to wrap up the end of our fiscal year successfully. Our panel discussion is going to be really primarily focused in the Solano County area, but it definitely applies no matter where we are to the solutions to homelessness as we see them. So that was number one. I think also on my written report to you, there's a report on the ERAP program, and we're waiting with bated breath, hoping that some adjustments are being made to that program regarding how much reimbursables could be made to the landlords. Pardon me. It has been slow to roll out. It's slow to get money out to folks. It does take some time and documentation. And as we experienced ourselves, and now the state is experiencing, it just is overwhelming, the number of people who are applying, and the pipeline backs up. So unfortunately, people are experiencing a delay in getting those resources. And then there's been a fear, from undocumented people about approaching for assistance. We're trying to make it very clear that we don't want that to be an inhibitor, that they are qualified for assistance. So we're plugging away on it. We've actually spent our advertising budget already. We've done billboards, email campaign, print advertising, and we're just hoping that the programs, that the flexibility can be brought to the program a little more, and waiting on decisions from those decision makers that allow that to happen. Pardon me.
Julie, I just wonder if I could ask about, hopefully they'll extend it, but I know people in that situation, when they fill out forms and they don't even hear anything, they don't know, have they lost that form, and yet they've got this whole thing of evictions hanging over their heads.
I know. I haven't. I'll tell you, frankly, we don't have access to the online portal yet. They don't let us check for participants who've applied for clients. So we help people get into the pipeline, but then we don't have access. And that's one of the changes we've asked for, is so that we can actually help facilitate that conversation for people and speed up their knowledge. But so far that hasn't happened yet. And they meet every week, and now there's a consortium of Contra Costa people who are meeting, I think, weekly or bi-weekly also. So
The Lenovo stuff? I think so.
All
May I
right,
open
enjoy.
it?
Of course,
It's
of
your
course.
name on it, so.
Well,
Leslie.
You got it.
Can you mute Leslie there, Christoph?
Sorry, I'm back.
Okay. Hi,
Sorry,
Leslie.
multitasking, sorry.
That's okay. Welcome. Julie was just sharing about the wonderful state system trying to get funding to tenants.
You
and
guys are
landlords.
heroes for being willing to take it on.
well, it's slow. So
So what happens if body gets evicted and the money comes through? I mean,
I mean, we don't have those answers yet either.
yeah.
They are definitely trying to be able to provide evidence, so that you have something to show the landlords. The program certainly, I think now they're talking about ending those award of funds by October 31st, trying to extend the time frame for awarding the dollars. But if the eviction moratorium isn't also updated, essentially by August 1st, you could start seeing people who are going to court and going through evictions. So that's why, also another reason why the providers have been asking for them to increase the maximum to the landlords up to 100%, so that
Mhm.
a loss.
Is there any pressure or any help we could do in terms of trying to move the needle on this? Or?
I think that the consortium of providers are doing that.
Okay. Okay.
They're the ones who are trying to get the state to make these changes through the provider that we're working with, which is LISC. And I don't know what that acronym stands for, but I think that's the best we can do at this point in time.
Okay. Any questions for Julie? Did I cut off your report? Something else you had to share today? Okay. Thank you. Joan?
I'm going to report on the Contra Costa. I'm sorry, I think of CC, I think Contra Costa. Catholic Charities of the East Bay. We had our last meeting earlier in June, and we met our new community representative. Her name is Risa Pedzewick, and she gave quite an interesting report as she has experienced the homelessness process in her own life. And I won't go into some of the things she has said, because I think many of the groups have already covered the issue of the problem with homelessness and the rising costs, et cetera. But she saw the two biggest needs to preventing homelessness are, and I think we've probably heard this before too, rent control and rental protection, especially with the issue of minimum wage issues that a lot of people, especially young people, are dealing with. She really focused more on the youth because she is a young person and she's most experienced with some of the process of going through that. She said the youth are most affected in her experience because they start out in debt, and they did so when they got out of school. And then the recession hit, and then after that, COVID hit. So they're really behind the eight ball as far as being able to get going with any kind of financial stability. And of course, she said the millennials are out of the housing market completely. So of course, they rent, and they're really in a what they call what we can see as a debt culture. They also, of course, because they have to rent and cannot buy, they, of course, experience the problems with scare tactics of the landlords, which we've heard, and the landlords' loopholes that I'm speaking, of course, from the other side now that Julie's given her report. But, and there really is a need for, in her experience, for mental health and counseling assistance, because on top of the fact that they need to rent, they also, of course, need to rent with multiple residents, multiple roommates. And because of that, there's a large incidence of roommate abuse. And there's no resource to take action against roommates that are abusing either their situation with the person who has signed the lease and has been responsible, and also just the behavioral issues if they are out, dealing with illegal behavior that then reflects on the rent and the rental unit. And there, of course, as I said, the multiple roommates are needed in order to survive in the Bay Area. And so she really sees a high need for mediation services. And sometimes the only recourse to get rid of misbehaving roommates is to pay them off to move out, which is also, of course, another financial burden. In general, the vacancies aren't necessarily resulting, there's so many increase in vacancies because of the high incidence of moving around, but they're not always followed with a decrease in rental cost, especially luxury units in a building. If there is a building that they don't need to fill the building in order to make money or maintain their responsibility. And so a lot of times owners of buildings will leave the units empty for months sometimes because they can get along with just a partial occupancy. And there's a need for vacancy taxes that she saw was very important. And also a need for somehow youth to build up their wealth, because I know the next issue is going to be the fact that, and I'm just thinking of our own social justice and just faith discussions about racial issues and not being able to build up wealth because of past history. And we've got a whole population of young people that are certainly not in the same racial problem issue if they are not of color, but they are, stuck with no financial backup at all. So she was very interesting, and I think we really were energized by having someone of her experience come and speak to us. And she's now a member of our board. Any comments or questions?
Well, I really appreciate that because, we have focused a lot on older people who have been affected. Rising numbers of them becoming unhoused. And so this is certainly a new group that we haven't really focused on because they probably aren't picked up in some numbers somewhere, but they're out there. Yeah. And we should certainly look into, since the county's working on mental health at the moment. And I saw a great presentation on what they've been working on. They're making good progress, that we should certainly add that to it. Thanks, Joan.
Sure.
The other thing that occurs to me is that this is going to reverberate through all generations, because I know in speaking with friends and neighbors, people who as grandparents are, being asked by their millennial grandchildren for help and not knowing, which way to turn or which way to go. I mean, they need some counseling too, mental or financial. I don't know which, probably both.
Yeah. How do you fairly distribute funds and still be able to keep yourself up?
Yeah.
And I think in my own community in Lafayette that I'm most familiar with in my parish, there's a lot of like we all do, there's a lot of comparing our own youth to the current youth situations. And there's a lot of resistance to looking at the whole situation as a completely different society right now compared to what now our parents and grandparents experienced, and a value system of, you know, being on your own as soon as you leave college or high school, and the value of getting a job right away, and the value of well, if you work hard enough, the old pull yourself up by your bootstrings philosophy. It just has no relevance right now to this incredible and
Yeah.
rapidly blooming experience of homelessness that and housing shortage that I don't think a lot of people, even when I tell them some of the numbers, they just can't believe it.
Mhm.
Because they don't see it. So it's really a challenge.
On
Okay.
a good note, I think this could have good ramifications too, because when you travel other places of the world, you often get multi-generational families living in the same home.
Yeah.
And they're often happier and certainly more connected. I mean, it's not the way I think typically we do things in America, but I'm not so sure that we're doing it right anyway. So, you know, maybe it's drawing, I have seen it draw some families closer together or to more consider, you know, moving in and supporting each other, which can be good. So,
Yeah.
Leslie?
Yep, I just wanted to add, sorry for forgiving me for my rocky start there. But I just wanted to add on this note, even though we don't necessarily see the numbers of homeless youth in the PIT counts, we know they're out there, which is why Trinity Center has created a program and a service model for them, and also why Hope Solutions, with funding from the county, is doing a rapid rehousing program for youth. So there are some resources out there. There always could be more. But there's a foundation anyway. So it's great that other groups are starting to be part of the conversation, because totally, they're like, it's the best prevention of all is to make sure our young people don't go in that terrible spiral. So.
Right. Oh, by the way, I wanted to thank you, Julie, for sending in your report. And also, of course, Hope Solutions. Thank you.
Righty. Doug, you want to introduce Barry? Or?
Yeah, sure. So the next item on the agenda is listed by Jan as for Barry Kammer to present. And while Barry will, I think, do the primary presentation, I am in on this too. So I'll turn it over to Barry, but I'll have some comments too.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug. And thank you, Jen, for allowing me to be on your agenda. Item number 3 or 2. It's pretty good. Have you all had a chance to read my one-page statement that includes a short proposal?
I don't know that they got sent it. I'm not.
No, Barry, no, Jan didn't send that out with the agenda. That I did share that with Jan, but the
I
answer is
must
no.
have missed it. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm
I'm a member of Arlington Community Church in Kensington. I was in the past a pastor at Orinda Community Church in Orinda. During the most recent racial reckoning that we've all been part of and experiencing, when it began, I made contact with a Black pastor friend of mine, Ron Buford, who built a program called Racists Anonymous. And from that, we actually created a chapter of Racists Anonymous at Arlington Community Church. It has since morphed out of a Racists Anonymous title into Becoming Anti-Racist. And so our congregation, as many of your congregations, are openly committed to becoming anti-racist. In the period of, or in the midst of one of the meetings, my friend Susan Russell used the term personal reparations. And after the meeting, I just sort of sat at my desk stewing, becoming very uncomfortable in a very good way. And so I called her and I said, you said something and I want to take it to a conversation. Susan and I spent several months every other week on the phone, on Zoom, discussing the issue of white privilege and personal reparations in the midst of our racial reckoning. We decided that we actually, as good Protestant members of a church, like all of you all, we're really good at talking about things and discussing them and voting on them and reading. But she and I really wanted to do something specific. And I had mentioned to her that in my conversations with other leaders in the community, that one of the major issues, and this is stuff you all know, is the lack of accumulation of Black wealth, the ability to accumulate generational wealth. When you talk about the millennials, the majority of the Black population in our country have no access to generational wealth, therefore have almost no access to housing, especially given the strict and often racist, structural racist practices in the housing industry. So what we decided to do in our studies is to really look at Black home ownership as our primary goal, and the means to do that to provide down payment assistance on a 0% interest loan for down payment assistance, with the proviso that if you sell the home or refinance it, you have to repay the loan. But if you don't do either of those two things, there's no repayment required. This is a model that's now being used across the United States in a number of communities very successfully. As you, I guess, are, Doug, as well, we needed to seek a home for our donor advised fund, and we found Richmond Community Foundation a great home for us. 6 churches gathered together in our denomination and a couple of just neighbor churches to do a Lenten offering. And we set as our goal $50,000. Each church would take Lenten offerings, and that would all go to the Black Home Ownership Reparations Fund. At the end of Lent, we actually ended up with $100,000 in our fund. But I'm glad that all of you are in this industry and in this field, because you know as well as I that $100,000 is a pittance when you talk about trying to really do some good in helping Black individuals and families buy homes. So as far as Susan and I are concerned, that's not the end of our time. That's just the beginning. And the hard part is now, because it was great when you had a goal of $50,000, 6 churches, and a designated period of time. But the hard work, as those of you who do fundraising know, is the day in and day out, growing the fund year in and year out. This has become a lifetime commitment for me and for Susan, because as 2 middle-class privileged white individuals, we feel like it would take all of our lives to truly address some of the white privilege that we've enjoyed and from which we've benefited. So we are now taking it to the next step and looking at not only the churches that participated, but to also and asking them to really make this an ongoing project of each of their churches. But we need to expand. We want to expand this project into other churches. We're talking to a couple of banks. We are speaking with the Real Estate Association, and the like. But one of the things that we'd like to do is make contact with you all, and through you, make contact with the people that you consider your communities, and invite them to participate in it's now called the Black Wealth Builders Fund. It's morphed from a Black Home Ownership Reparations Fund. But For most of our churches, for most of us, we are white, we are privileged, and we are in the perfect place to really make a difference in this particular issue. So that's our proposal is, let us communicate through you with the folk that you represent. Questions?
Well, let me add to that then.
Okay.
So I want to explain that actually I'm kind of wearing two hats with respect to this proposal. One of them is as a member of Danville Congregational Church, because we were one of the churches that went in together with Arlington Community Church and others on this Lenten offering. And so we are all part of the small group of churches that have already begun this fund. So that's one hat. The other hat is as a steering committee chair of the Multi-Faith Action Coalition. It was Barry and Susan and Jim Becker of Richmond Community Foundation that approached me with the question about whether Multi-Faith Action Coalition might be interested in being involved in this project in the way that Barry just alluded to, that to provide assistance in reaching out to folks on our contact list to encourage them to number one, to discuss with their own faith communities, churches, synagogues, whatever faith communities, whether their own faith community might participate in this project as an institution, and also possibly for just reaching out for individual donations to the fund. I explained to, and I should mention that the Richmond Community Foundation is familiar to the Multi-Faith Action Coalition, because Multi-Faith Action Coalition is not its own 501c3. We are financially sponsored by the Richmond Community Foundation. So basically our 501c3 backing is through the Richmond Community Foundation. So we know this organization. I explained to the people that in this conversation we had just last week that really we aren't a fundraising organization, but then it occurred to me that we have done at least one fundraising project some years ago. We, the Multi-Faith Action Coalition, helped to launch the Contra Costa Housing Security Fund and did some fundraising for it. This is a fund that exists within the homelessness continuum of care to provide basically starter loans, starter grants to get people over the hurdle of getting into housing, whether it's a security deposit or first month's rent or something like that. So we have done fundraising once that I can remember in the past. So it's not completely without precedent that we might do something like that. So anyway, those are the things that I wanted to add to Barry's presentation. So now questions.
Jamie?
I'm just wondering if we have interested folks, who would we connect them to and how?
Repeat that?
How would we connect? For example, I'm part of a congregation that might be interested. Who would I direct my rabbi to contact?
Me.
Okay. Will you drop your information in the chat?
I saw some information, and I will make sure that everybody in this room gets information from me about this fund.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I apologize. I can find the one pager and also send it out.
I'm also willing to either in person, as it turns out, as we start reopening, or via Zoom. I'm more than willing to come and meet with any members or groups of members of your congregation or speak to your congregation about this issue. And I noticed that on the 29th of June, you're having a racism and housing webinar. For me, this is an extension of something like that, because when you notice that there's racism in housing, the next question is, well, what do you do about it? Other questions?
So you mentioned you're, reaching out to banks, because I think, financing homes is a critical piece
Mhm.
so that they actually get considered for housing, not just, well, because we know in this area, people come in here and they just pay cash for a house or something. And most regular folks aren't able to do that. And so even that group, so you would need hopefully some sort of an agreement that they would actually support a program and help financially in some way to reach out to have a special fund or interest rate, or I don't know what, but and hopefully after we consider this and we talk to some other groups, maybe you'd want to consider picking a time, maybe in September or something, to present to a wider audience that we could promote.
Sure.
I mean, personal visits and one-on-ones and small groups are great, and some may ask for that, and others may just want to get a couple of people from their congregation to come and represent the congregation and take more information back to them or something like that.
Sure, I could see that.
And Elizabeth is also, Robinson is also part of our group. So when you say you're from Orinda community, that's part of your history. We know well their social justice and working on housing. So we commend that, yes. Carrie?
Just a quick question to Barry. Do you have a website, or what materials would we be able to forward, or would you just prefer that we send people your contact information?
You're on mute, Barry. Barry, you're on mute.
Carrie, we have a giving page with information on it on the Richmond Community Foundation website. And so what I would be doing is sending you all that link, and then you can go onto that website and read about it. We're still adding more information, but you could both read about it, and then that's also a giving page where you can make a contribution, etc. Is that
Great.
answer?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Doug?
All right, so what I'm looking for here is some guidance for the steering committee. And what I mean by that is Barry and Susan and Jim from the Richmond Community Foundation basically have made a request to the Multi-Faith Action Coalition for assistance with this project. And so that really needs to come to the steering committee for consideration, and first to decide yes or no, are we going to assist, and then to start exploring, if the answer is yes, to start exploring exactly how. The first step.
Doug, I have a quick suggestion. Being in groups like this, I know it's pretty uncomfortable to make decisions like that when the person's still in the room. And so what I'm going to suggest is that I'm going to leave this meeting. I'm going to come back into it, but stay in your waiting room. And if you want to talk to me or ask me any follow-up questions, then Jan, you can find me in the waiting room. But I want you to be able to discuss this without me in the room. Does that feel appropriate to you all?
I don't know that we have a waiting room, Chris.
We don't have a waiting room, so
We just kind of come in.
yeah, we don't do this. We don't, we're not like, okay, we'll check you out first to see if you're worthy and so forth. So no, I mean, if it's up to you. I mean, we have made decisions like this before, so I don't know if you feel uncomfortable, you can jump off and come back in 10 minutes or whatever. It's up to you.
I'm not uncomfortable. I want you all to be comfortable. So I'll just sit here.
Okay. So you're looking for a motion to approve this, to move it to the steering committee, our usual format, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be anything specific. You can just just a recommendation to the steering committee to consider this request, or it could be specific. If this group thinks that we should do specific things, you know, to do this, and then you could add that advice to the steering committee as well. But, you know, basically the main basic question is just whether or not this group recommends to the steering committee that we consider this, saying yes to this request.
Judy?
I just have a question for Barry. Have you started the process of helping some folks? Or have you determined who's going to be eligible, or what will make them eligible?
Yeah, we decided very early on that we didn't want to become an agency that did the vetting and did the work, that we wanted to be the people that collected the money and educated about the needs for reparations. And so we are currently working, not exclusively probably, but right now we're working with Nikki Beasley in the Richmond Neighborhood Housing. They already have a track record, a successful track record of helping individuals to first-time home buyers to buy homes. And we had a long conversation with her last week, and she's ready to have us donate money or contribute money to her program specifically designated to help Black families and individuals. We have also decided that we wanted to do a maximum loan to the individual of $15,000. And so they would have a need to come up with part of their own down payment, but this would be a bridge so that they could actually be successful. So that's the way that we're planning on doing it, is using organizations like Nikki Beasley's and have them do the work because they do it every day, and have us designate that it has to be for a self-identified Black family or individual, and that it would be for a maximum of $15,000.
Is there a similar group to that group in East Contra Costa County?
I don't know. That's more a question for you all right now. But I think there is in every part of our counties, both Alameda and Contra Costa County. It was suggested that we look at Solano County as well. We are currently hesitant to expand just yet because we are a young organization. And there are UCC churches and other churches in your denominations that are in Solano County. So what we're hoping to do to broaden this is to encourage and be a model for other regions to really start their own reparations funds. But yeah, I'm not sure what the names are in East Contra Costa, Judy.
So my thought is that, it sounds like a very worthwhile thing for us to get behind and support. I guess my question is more general. How will we determine going forward, looking at other requests for funding? I mean, I think that the Multi-Faith Action Coalition probably has a limited amount of, I don't know if bandwidth is the right term, but appetite taken on.
Bandwidth is definitely a right term.
Yeah. So, is this the one that would rise to the top, and we'd all get behind this? And then what about the next person that comes along and presents us something that sounds really good, and we go, well, sorry, we've already gotten on another train,
I think we're
Yep,
getting into
that's-
a lot of details right now, and we are running out of time. We're on agenda item number 3, and we have used 48 minutes of our meeting time. So I don't know, if we can go into that much detail at this point, but we're running out of time really quick.
Why don't we send a general recommendation? That would give, the steering committee time to discuss it and us more time to think about it and come up with more questions and ways we could support. Rather than try and like Christoph said, try and get into too many details.
If we want to make that be a motion from the chair, I'll second it.
Yes, the chair will, I try not to do that, but sure, the chair will move that recommendation to the steering committee that they consider becoming a part of this project. And Doug seconds it. Everyone in favor, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Thanks for moving us on, Christoph. You're our guy for that.
Okay, you can come back into the meeting now, Barry.
Yeah, Barry. Yeah, take your fingers out of it.
And Mark, I put my email in the chat, and you'll also get an email from me through Jan. And I would encourage you to ask all your questions and raise any concerns in an email. That way I can address them one by one.
Okay.
But thank you very much. I appreciate your interest in this.
Well, and we need to, and there's, Barbara Lee's got her reparations bill in the Congress. We can never get rid of the filibuster. We'll do a whole lot of things. Thank you. Let's see. Doug, you want to just mention again about our June 29th? So I reached out to Sabir, but I never heard back from him.
Well, it's just a placeholder. We don't really have any details yet. So just, save the date.
Well, we do have
August 29th is a Sunday, and there's just to say that nominally the likely time of this event is going to be late afternoon, 4 p.m. or something like that.
No, we already had this one scheduled. This is the one at noon. It's not on a Sunday. I don't think. We're talking about the one.
I'm sorry. I gotta pull the.
Did they
so
change
I'm
it?
looking at, you have me down for MFAC August Action Gathering, August 29th.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I got all my, all right, you're right. Okay. I just knew I had missed the last meeting, so I thought you might know more about it. Okay, Ronnie. Ebo, welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. So right now for EPHO, we are working on bringing people out to our Refund Coalition press conference and rally, which is going to take place on June 17th. We're recruiting members from our Faith and Justice Committee, as well as from our RCOP program and anyone else from the community. We think it's important for the people's priorities to be heard by City Council, so that the budget will be a reflection of what the people want. So that's why we're bringing out our heavy artillery of membership. Yeah, so that's what we're doing right now. We're also working on talking to more religious institutions about homelessness policies in the Bay Area, and they're being invited to our Faith and Justice Committee meetings this month. So we'll have a guest speaker there, which should be nice. Yeah,
That's a regularly scheduled meeting, the Faith and
Yes.
Justice. Can you share the time and date?
yes.
Whatever it is, the third, fourth, Monday, Tuesday, whatever it is.
It's the fourth Thursday of every month at 9:30 a.m.
Okay, and do you have a link or something that you could share? Somebody
Unfortunately, no. I can give you a link to the
Sign
Faith
up.
and Justice website.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
So are you going to mention about this TOPA thing I saw? An email from EPHO?
Oh, I have yet to check that, so
Okay,
I'm not
okay.
going to speak on it.
All right, no problem.
But thank you for bringing that up and reminding me to read it.
Yeah, I just got it. Okay, any questions for Ronnie? All right. Going to city councils is a full-time job.
Yeah.
You gotta stay on those people. Let's see here. Hope Solutions, Carrie.
Hi, everyone. I just have a couple updates for you all. We're kicking off our summer backpack drive. So we're working to activate all of our communities who are interested in supporting that activity. We outfit over 400 clients with backpacks, so they're ready for school from kindergarten through college. And we're partnering once again with Sydney Page to help us with that effort. If you participated last year, it's the same model this year, as we're still not able to volunteer in person yet. So it's a really great opportunity to make it easy to volunteer and have a big impact on our youth. And the link is on our website. It's also in the report that you all received last week. And then the other update is that our summer camp is on. It's virtual, however. And that being said, we're really excited to kick it off. We still need a couple more volunteers. So if anyone's interested in helping out and sharing their whatever fun skill set you have with our youth that would be, fun to connect with them. Sanibel is looking to fill in a few folks for our East County program. So you can always email me or you can email Sanibel, but we are virtual again. So it's going to make it somewhat easier for people to volunteer, and she can help coordinate materials. So we're doing AM and PM programming, and she can slot you in where you have time. And I did include the link for signing up in the report as well, if you want to go ahead.
What's the time commitment?
We're just looking for, it can just be one afternoon.
Okay.
It can be short or long, depending on what time you have available.
Okay.
We're really just, oh yeah, go ahead.
And the age group?
It's it's a wide span of ages. So if you have a particular group that you want to work with, you can let Sanibel know.
Okay.
So mainly grade schoolers. And that's all I have. Very brief. Definitely always reach out if you have any questions.
Okay. We're going to catch up for Christoph.
I'm helping y'all catch up. That's right.
Clara. You got time.
Hey, everybody. I also don't have too many updates this week, but I was just going to give you guys kind of the rundown of how Home Match did in the month. Last month was May. So let's see. So yeah, we did make 2 matches last month, which was very cool. We also have, I think 4, oh, hello. We have 4 new home providers that are joining this month, which is very exciting. We currently have 1 active home provider in Antioch. So if you have anyone in Antioch who is looking for a room for rent, please send them our way. And then in terms of outreach events, so this weekend is Juneteenth, and we will be partnering with Antioch. Hello, Antioch. I'm so sorry, I am being distracted. Grace Arms of Antioch for their Juneteenth celebration. We will be vendoring there. It'll be an in-person event, but it will all be outdoors. And let's see. There will be.
Got anything you can put in the chat or on a link or anything
Yes.
on that? Okay.
I have an Eventbrite link that I'll share in the chat shortly.
Thank you.
Of course. There'll be live music, food, or actually, I'm not sure they're doing food this year. There will be live music and spoken poetry, and then there'll be like local nonprofits are vendoring and small businesses. So should be a fun time if you guys can make it. And I think that's it for me.
Great. Getting back into the swing of things. Fun. I like it. Trinity Center, Leslie.
remember to unmute myself. There we go. Hi, hi. So we are continuing to provide our basic services and be a place of safety, especially as far as COVID-19. So even as the public mandates are changing tomorrow, we're probably going to still keep most of our protocols as they are. Not only because we fall under the enhanced shelter guidelines, but still to protect staff and members and volunteers. Because while many of us have been vaccinated, we just don't know who comes in the door if they have or haven't been. So to address that, this past Friday, we held our second on-site COVID educational forum and vaccination clinic. And a few more people did get vaccinated, which is just in time for them to be included in the state's lottery drawing. So that's fun with COVID. Believe it or not, it's time for us to start working with the city of Walnut Creek on planning for this winter's evening program. It takes a lot of time to go through all the steps and get all the approvals. So, you know, while we're still considering what that might look like for the year, we're marching forward. And finally, we had such fun with our second virtual gala this past Friday. It was a great celebration of our partners, our accomplishments over the last year, and our hopes for the future. So if you missed it, you actually can enjoy the evening's festivities on YouTube just by looking up the video under Trinity Center Walnut Creek. You can either put in Night of Hope or 7th Annual Gala, and it'll take you right to the presentation. So please enjoy it. There's a lot of really cool stuff there, including a great singer at the end of it. And if you feel so inclined, you can still donate on our website, and it will be counted for our gala proceeds if you indicate that under the gift designation. And then finally, we're putting on my fundraising hat. Also coming up for us is a dine and donate event all day, July 7th at the Walnut Creek Black Bear Diner on Bancroft Road. So that's all day July 7th. So please spread the word and enjoy a meal there if you can. So we're just keeping on, keeping on.
I assume it's a percentage sort of a thing.
Something like that. Yeah, the last time we did it about 2 years ago, it was only the evening proceeds, but this is all day. So,
All day. Okay. Well, that's a lot of people who go there.
So,
Okay. Great.
so that's what's going on for us. Any questions? Any input?
Do you have to identify that you're there to eat on behalf of Trinity Center? Okay.
Nope, it's going to be all proceeds, everybody, even if they don't know. So that's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is great.
Where did you say that is?
The Black Bear Diner on Bancroft Road in Walnut Creek.
Oh, Black Bear. Okay, got it.
There, okay.
Black Bear, yep.
What's the
Walnut
name?
And I
Yeah, it's
think
got
it
the big
applies to
carved bear.
takeout as well. I think it applies to takeout as well.
Great.
Hey, Leslie, how did the gala do compared to last year's event?
We met our goal basically, and compared to last year, I think it was about the same, both in terms of participation levels, which is super important, and revenue. So, and this was our second one, so we really learned a lot from the first year, and you'll see a lot more bells and whistles. Well, you were there, you got to enjoy it. A lot more bells and whistles this year, but we met our goal. We're really happy about it. So it's gonna keep funding the new and creative, crazy ideas we keep coming up with.
Great job. It was a very nice event.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for your support. So.
Mhm.
And I don't really have much to report on safe parking. We're starting to have conversations again, a little bit with St. John Vianney, but there's really no forecast on the horizon for that.
Okay. Thank you. Judy.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have a question, Jan?
I just wanted you to share something about Winter Nights.
Oh, sure. Well, actually, today is the last day of this year's season, and Dolores is probably really happy because it's been at her church, and this has been a really hard year because we had to go by county standards, which was have people there 4 weeks at a time and all days, and we only had 8 congregations who could do that. Well, 7 congregations in San Damiano, and so we had a partial year, but next year we're all scheduled starting in September for what we've done previously with going to congregations every 2 weeks. And like I said before, I am stepping aside as executive director and Bill Shaw is stepping up as executive director. So we're carrying on. It won't be much of a transition because he's been doing a lot of stuff. And the one thing that we really are happy about is that we have a safe parking program. And we got a 3-month extension on that, and we're hoping to make it year round. We're talking to the city of Pittsburgh and the city of Antioch to possibly make that happen. Our safe parking program is in Pittsburgh, and it's been really successful. And we've had some folks housed from that, and we've helped some folks get jobs from that. And there's people that are really working toward things, which we've never had that chunk of time before, and now we have the time. And our staff is former clients and former staff that we have there, and it's just working really well. And we're very pleased, and they're very pleased to continue to have work. So we're going to continue for another 3 months, and then hopefully can keep on. We'll see. Anyway, so.
Do you all have any contingency for the fire and heat season?
Do we have what?
Any contingency for the fire and heat season? If people are living in their cars, and have you given any consideration or working with the cities if they offer, I don't know, the cooling centers are usually like during the day, I think.
Yeah, actually, Bill and our person, Donna, who's the manager there, they're talking to the city of Pittsburgh, and they may be talking about some of those things.
Okay, good. Okay, any questions for Judy? I'll give, how many years have you been executive director, Judy?
This is my 7th year.
All right, big hand for Judy. Thank you so much. You've done such a wonderful job growing that organization.
Thank you.
And we know you'll still be in some.
Yeah, I have a couple of jobs that they've assigned me to do. So
yeah, I'm sure they'll find something for you to do.
One of them is to lead the group of people that we have there's about 160 on our list who and only about 35 to 40 go to the summit meeting. So I can still do that.
Good. Well, we'll look forward to your questions. Your suggestion of get acquaintance.
Oh, and by the way, the reason I haven't been attending meetings is not my fault.
Yeah.
I didn't have my correct email address.
And she never said I'm not getting it. So
and I'll probably still be coming to these meetings because Bill is going to have his plate full.
Yes, he is. Great. Well, you're always welcome with us.
Okay.
Doug, you want to talk about 8816?
Sure. And the reason we're bringing Assembly Bill 816 to this task force at this point is basically we have suffered a couple of big disappointments in the legislature. This task force has only recommended 3 bills to the steering committee, which the steering committee approved for Multi-Faith Action Coalition to officially support. And of those 3 bills, 2 of them have now failed to make it through what they needed to make it through in order to continue in the active legislative process this year. Those 2 bills were Assembly Bill 71, the Bring California Home Act, which would have been a very bold spending plan, with I think it was a $2.4 billion allocation, not just this year, but for ongoing funding to really make some headway at solving homelessness. That bill unfortunately did not make it through the Assembly by June 4th, which was the deadline to be passed by the House of Origin in order to be still alive this year. So it becomes a 2-year bill. It's eligible to continue in the process in 2022. A similar fate happened to Assembly Bill 328, which was the reentry housing program that we recommended the Multi-Faith Action Coalition support, and we do support that bill, but it didn't even make it out of Assembly appropriations. It also can be a 2-year bill, which means it can be reconsidered in 2022. That leaves us only with 1 bill that the Multi-Faith Action Coalition supports that has anything to do with housing, and that's Assembly Constitutional Amendment 1, which would lower the bar for passing housing-related bond measures to only to 55% of the electorate. The bond measures have to go to the full electorate. And right now, the bond measures for housing require 67% to pass. And so this would lower the bar to 55%, the same as school bonds. Anyway, that we still are supporting that, and it's still alive in the legislature. But we have nothing active in this legislative year, 2021, that has anything to do with homelessness. And so I've wanted to bring this bill, AB 816, which is the only remaining bill that Housing California lists as a bill that they are a sponsor of. So this is a Housing California sponsored bill, and it's the only one left because they were also sponsors of AB 71 and AB 328, but those are now 2-year bills. So you had a chance to look at the fact sheet for this bill. I won't refer to anything on the right, in the right column of the fact sheet, but just quoting from the part of the fact sheet where it says the solution. AB 816 creates a process for holding state and local governments accountable for housing the unsheltered based on measurable goals and existing resources they have identified for that purpose. Specifically, AB 816 requires state and local governments to assess available resources to address homelessness, requires local governments to develop an actionable plan to end homelessness that includes specific actions that will be taken to eliminate racial and ethnic disparities among people experiencing homelessness by 2029. And based on goals, requires the state and local governments to develop an actionable plan to reduce homelessness to functional zero by December 31st, 2029. I'll stop reading there. I mean, there's more on the fact sheet. But I would also point out that on the second page of the fact sheet, it lists the sponsors, including Housing California, and to be inclusive in presenting this, I need to mention that the bill does have opposition. The sponsors never list the opposition on their fact sheets, so you have to look elsewhere for the opposition. It's basically opposed by groups of associations of California counties. So the opposition is California State Association of Counties, the rural county representatives of California, and urban counties of California. And the crux of the opposition is summarized in a legislative analysis that goes something like this. The major concern of the counties is the lack of funding available to achieve the reductions in homelessness proposed in the bill. In addition, they are seeking amendments that would, 1, treat the development of state and local plans equally and make state or federal resources available to support the development of the local plans, 2, and 2, find the development of these first-of-a-kind comprehensive local homelessness plans fund the development, but defer action on setting goals, etc. Anyway, it basically has to do with concern about funding and loss of local control. Those are the county's concerns. And this bill was never intended to provide funding. It was basically a companion bill of AB 71, which is the bill that addresses the funding. Anyway, that's what I have to say about AB 816. And the proposal is to consider in this task force whether or not to recommend to the steering committee that Multi-Faith Action Coalition support this bill.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Doug, was AB 71 the one that didn't make it through? The companion bill?
Yeah, AB 71 is the one that I said was a $2.4 billion funding bill to really make a some progress at getting rid of, eliminating homelessness.
And
Does it
Doug,
make
is this,
sense to pass one without the other?
Well, yes and no. You can pass this bill, but it's not going to do much without the funding.
Right.
and if I'm reading the bill right, this AB 816 is mostly an analysis bill, right? It's more to analyze what's going on.
Well, and accountability, to provide actionable plans and required actionable plans. But to address the funding question, again, AB 71 isn't the only game in town for funding for homelessness. There is funding in everybody's, both the legislature's version of the budget for next year and the governor's version of the budget for next year. There's funding for homelessness, new funding for homelessness in both, in both of those, all the different legislative or budget versions that are being tossed around right now. So even without AB 71, there will be some significant funding. So anyway, that's
But the
what I-
other is not ongoing, right? I mean,
right. All the funding in these budgets, it's 1 year only. And as whether there's more funding in next year's budget or not, it gets determined at this time next year.
yeah, it just seems a little bit cart before the horse. The 20, you remember when we all did about the veterans, Jamie, remember all about we're getting rid of homelessness for veterans by whatever year it was.
2016.
Yeah, 2016. Okay. So yeah, it seems, I don't know, seems weak to me without punch to actually get anything done, unmandated, fund. It doesn't do any harm to pass it. I don't know how much you'll actually accomplish without funding, but long term, but. What do you think, Mark?
Well, it's a step in the right direction for
Yeah.
trying to address homelessness. And,
Yeah.
It's not, unlike the 2016, it's not at the county level, it's at the state level. My concern is, trying to hold the counties or local governments really accountable. What does that mean? I think that part would be hard to enforce, but I think, it certainly has good promise to try to put this issue front and center on, everyone in the state of California's radar. So I would support, voting for this or recommending it.
Motion from anyone?
A motion that we recommend to the steering committee that we support this bill.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand or thumb or wave in the case of Leslie.
Okay,
All
thank you.
righty, thank you. Jamie, bless your heart, I have got to move you up next month.
No worries. I don't have a lot of updates, but I did want to let folks know just a quick update around county shelters. So 2 of our hotels under the Project Room Key program are ending June 30th. And at about the same time that that's happening, the Concord shelter and the Concord Respite will be opening, the medical respite shelter. And there, I actually have some pictures I'll try and drop in the chat, but we have now put in these sort of cubicles so people have their own sleeping pods in the shelters themselves. So the capacity for Concord is a little bit diminished to accommodate those, but we will actually be able to take couples, which is a new great addition to our system. We, for the county shelters, will not be accepting new referrals into the shelters until July 1st. So right now, for the past month, everything's sort of been on hold while we're trying to empty those 2 hotels out. But starting July 1st, CORE will be able to start making placements again. So we have done a lot of work to try and get everybody housed or ready to move back into the Concord shelter if they want to do that. So the teams are doing a great job. We will not be putting anybody onto the street from those 2 hotels. So that's
Really?
yeah. So the other thing I wanted, from the 2 hotels that are closing, yeah, the goal is if people want housing or shelter, we are working to get them that. Some people may not want to go into the shelter, and that's totally their choice. But they're going to basically be putting everybody, they're going to put everybody from the hotels into the Concord shelter that wants to be there, and then they'll start putting in new people after that.
How many people are leaving? How many people were in the 2 hotels?
Oh, a couple hundred people.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and the Concord shelter is what, 25 or something small, right?
Yes, but there have been a bunch of resources that have come in. So there's 100 what are called mainstream vouchers that are through the Housing Authority. So there's been a huge amount of work to get people connected to those vouchers. There's a ton of about $3 million in rapid rehousing that's been focused just in the hotels. So there's been a very concerted effort for the last 6 months, probably knowing that this deadline was coming,
Okay.
to prioritize the people in the hotels to get them housed. There's also going to be new guidance coming out tomorrow for congregate shelters. And so you'll probably see an email blast about that. So one thing to note is the governor tomorrow is sort of like, it's a free for all, right? Everything's opening back up. So we have some specific guidance coming from the health department for shelters, just to help guide them now that the state's kind of stepping back.
At the county level? Yeah.
Happy to try and answer any questions that people may have.
I'm kind of curious, do you have any, did y'all track at all, the cities that the people who are in the hotels, where they came from?
Yeah, that information. So when an intake is done, that information is gathered, sort of where they were last housed or where they were staying.
Yeah.
I don't have a report on that, but
I would assume if they, if they choose not to, or there's, whatever, that they'll go back to those places, same cities. And
potentially.
the cities may appreciate a heads up or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of coordination
Okay,
on the back end to try and
Great.
figure out where people are going to go and make sure they have a safe landing spot.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Questions for Jamie?
Jamie,
Yes, Mark.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, Jamie, were the people in Project Room Key entered into HMIS? Is
Yep.
that okay?
Yep.
then. Sorry, I wanted-
Yeah, it was basically, but like we called it our interim housing. It's essentially like a shelter just in a hotel. So yes, they've been part of the whole system.
Thanks.
I guess my question is not just for Jamie, but any of the housing providers. Have you heard anything about California considering extending the eviction moratorium past June 30th?
I haven't, but I certainly hope they do.
Yeah, okay. I'm
Um,
hoping too, but we're only a couple weeks away from that, so it's a little concerning.
Yeah, and one thing to flag actually, so one of the other roles I have is to help develop training for our continuum of care and tenants' rights, especially thinking about eviction moratoriums and all of that is something that we're looking at doing before the end of the year, mostly for providers, but that's definitely on our radar. I see Doug has a hand up.
Yeah, so the Board of Supervisors has not taken a particularly long-range view on extending the eviction moratorium. They basically have, it's been renewed at least 3 times already, and in each case, they've kind of waited until the week before the expiration of the current moratorium. So you would expect that there will be a measure or an item on the Board of Supervisors agenda before the end of the month to consider that, another extension.
Do you know the date of the next Board of Supervisors?
I can look it up real quick, just I don't have it right now.
Okay, that'd be good to know.
It'd be a good one for us to advocate for, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. While you're looking that up, let's see. Oh, well, Doug needs to talk about the next thing anyway.
Okay, so the next Board of Supervisors meeting. No, it's not opening up. All right, well, I'll go on to talk about the other item.
Okay.
All right, so I just put in the chat link for the registration page for the June 29th event, which is a webinar on a matter of faith, housing, and racial justice. And this is a webinar that we are co-sponsoring. We, Multi-Faith Action Coalition, is co-sponsoring along with FAME, the Faith Alliance for a Moral Economy. It will be basically a 1-hour webinar, and the featured speaker is Rodney Nickens, who was until recently a housing policy officer or policy director of some title within the Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California, and has written policy papers about housing justice in California in that role. He recently moved to the San Francisco Foundation. Anyway, he will be our featured speaker, and we will also have some stories from impacted renters. And the timing is intentionally right around the currently scheduled expiration of the county's eviction moratorium. Of course, we could have done that many other times in the past year because the county eviction moratorium was approaching expiration several other times as well. But anyway, that's coming up. It's a Tuesday afternoon at noon. You can register at that link. And I see that Mark put in the date of the next Board of Supervisors meeting.
Way to go, Mark. Yeah, and we have Father Paulson participating on the 29th with a theological moment. So we hope you'll all sign up. I mean, we all know the intersectionality of all these issues, and we really need to get more people to be aware of them, and opportunity to invite people who really don't know much about it and would like to know more and would like to work on these problems. Let me see, where is, there she is, Dolores. What's up in Concord?
Yes, the Naval Weapons Station is still taking qualifications until June 18th. And they said so far 40 companies have expressed an interest, but that they don't know whether they want to be actually a master developer or subcontractors. Some people have been expressing they want to work on just one part of the Naval Weapons Station. And so they will find that out, I guess, after they cut off the, after June 18th. And then they'll look at all the qualifications and then try to bring it down to fewer that they can talk to more better, more better.
More better, yeah. So do you know if they're waiting until everyone submits and then they look at them, or if they've been
It
looking at them
sounds
as they
like they
receive them?
must do that. I don't know. The person I talked to just said there have been about 40 so far, but they didn't know whether
Yeah.
they were actually wanted to be the major developer or subcontractor.
That'd be interesting if they had on their application, master, sub, one, the other, both, that would have had some sort of.
Yeah, well, in the past, I don't think they've ever talked about subcontractors. So there must be some way that they've sort of heard that some people are interested in doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's getting closer every month. Yes, Joe.
Dolores, I read somewhere recently that Cal State East Bay is looking to want to have a campus on the Naval Weapons Station property. Have you heard that, or do you know anything about that?
I don't know, but I know that they have property set aside for a university.
Okay.
So that it could well happen, I think.
Yeah, they've talked about it a long time. Even the East Bay development folks, or whatever their new name is for developing the area, have talked about it. I think that's the intent.
Well, this was from the chancellor of Cal State East Bay.
Oh, I
Well,
saw it some
he
other place. I
probably
don't know where I
knows
saw it.
that they're interested.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they have a good chance of doing that.
And of course, they're going to drop in a couple of high density, low rent units, right? To help us all out. in
Oh,
the
yeah.
ongoing-
Supposed to have 12,000 houses eventually, but and the 160 set aside, I think 160, 16 acres set aside for homeless. And but they all won't be built in the first development. They are putting them out in units of 4, I think.
Doug, you have a comment?
Yeah, the numbers that Dolores is throwing out right now all come from the previous round of planning with the previous master developer, Lennar, who pulled out. And there is no guarantee that those numbers will hold in whatever plan comes forward with a new master developer. But housing advocates are kind of united in advocating for the same goals as before, which was something like a total of, as Dolores said, something like a total of 12,000 homes, and a guarantee that at least 25% of them would be affordable for people at or below 80% area median income. So that's not the median affordable, what they call 100% of area median income. But those provisions were in the plan for the previous master developer, and housing advocacy needs to be at the table to make sure that something like those provisions is included in the new plan.
And the Navy is going by the basic entities of the old plan, saying that there has to be something there for homeless.
Right.
So,
The homelessness accommodation is part of federal law. There has to be something for homelessness accommodation according to federal law.
So Scott, I thought about you when I read the paper today. Did you happen to see the East Bay Times? I thought about,
No.
thought, well, if all I need is 500 square feet or something, and we could get it down to a manageable number, that'd really help everyone actually house them. They had one today coming out of Sacramento, like 267 square feet. And it's like from 600 to $1,000. I'm like, your SSI, I mean, that's just not doable for it. But they're also talking about how there's a lot of people who want to work close to work, and they could bike and walk, and that would be okay for them. And that doesn't sound like they're thinking about the homeless to me. They're thinking about
It might help. It might help with our earlier conversation about the youth, though, who might be able to
might help with
get
the
out
youth.
there and find something to live in.
But I couldn't help but think, wow, I thought you'd already hit the smallest area. You can get more square footage in an ADU. I just wanted to ask y'all, how many of y'all are able to participate in next month's meeting, July the 12th? I usually like to, okay, put your hand up. You gonna be around? Okay, because I'm looking, even though Doug says we don't have any bills, I'm looking at 3 bills, and I need to have a discussion with Doug about them. He's not as excited as I am, but at any rate, if we can meet in July, then we'll take August off, so that we do have a break. I wanted to mention the Measure X Advisory Committee meets on Wednesdays, and we want to, if you're able, on June the 30th at 5, the topic will be on housing and homelessness. And so if you can.
Jen, if we had a few minutes in July, our church is just getting ready to drop our second trailer unit and house the second person that we've been working through CORE with. So so that will kind of complete the installation part of this program, that we can start getting out to other churches to show the model. So
Are you
by-
taking sort of pictures or whatever as you go, or keeping a journal or anything that,
Yeah, I've taken pictures here and there. It's, again, I just keep saying it's not that complicated a process. It's just time and a very little amount of money.
yeah.
And so, which I know confuses everybody, but it's really not been difficult. It's just finding the time to get to it, unfortunately.
We'll keep
I can
that in
unroll.
mind so that we can set up something for you to be able to, maybe Doug, we could talk with, at the steering committee on, with the past, what's that faith group, partners or whatever, what's it called with the pastors under the steering committee? The pastors group under the steering committee. Anyway, they have one. And maybe we could target having a presentation.
That'd be great.
initially with Scott and that group. Okay,
You're talking about the Faith Leaders Advisory.
that's
Board.
the one, yeah. Sorry, I drive poor Doug crazy. And the other thing is, I saw an article somebody else might have seen about the origins of single-family zoning in this country. And turns out it started in Berkeley, and they are now finishing it because they have voted to move away from that model. It's a super interesting article, and we normally, talk about redlining and all those other things, but this is super interesting to see how this started. And to me, it knocks the knees out from underneath a lot of these people who are objecting to us trying to get some middle housing, or the sacred idea of 70% of our land that we can develop is simply for single family homes, and the world's going to come to an end, if we don't do that. So I'll send it around because there are a couple of bills, and they've been working on them, and I'm sure they'll continue to if they don't get through. But we're chipping away with the ADUs now. People are more accepting of that, and we need to just chip away since they won't take the big apple. Yes, Joan?
What was the name of that organization you just mentioned? That's national, that's against all this housing growth and except for single families. Was there an organization you mentioned?
No, I'm talking about there's a lot of them, but it's mostly the cities, but I'm just talking about the city of Berkeley actually was the first city in the country to set up, and it was, a guy with you heard of Mason McDuffie or whatever, the realtor?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll send it to you. We're over our time. Anybody have anything else to share for the good of the group?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that there was an organization called Eligible California that is specifically, I think, described by you just now as a group that is posing as, reasonable, sensible housing growth, but it really is very much against disrupting the whole single family housing as they exist by blocking the change in use of private property to expand, either more than.
If it has a really nice sounding name, really loving and sounds like they really support it, it's usually not the, it's just a fake name for a group that's against it.
Yeah, and lots of money behind it, that and lots of legal support.
Well, the cities are against it. They're famous local control.
Yeah.